people have a lot of ideas over the days, but executing it and making sure you have that patience to push that in production with all the issues without expecting any fruit in return. I think that's what showcases in your resume.
Yeah.
And I think we can talk a lot. I think we'll spend a whole day talking about applications of like algorithms and how we didn't know about what exactly is used. But I think just to come back a little bit on, let's say, अगर कोई थर्ड ईयर में है, फोर्थ ईयर में है, वो इंटरव्यू के लिए प्रिपेयर कर रहा है, व्हाट आर सम रिसोर्सेज दैट यू वुड रिकमेंड दैट पर्सन टू गो इन एंड लुक फॉर?
Yeah. First of all, for the language, go to Tutorials Point. It's a very simple portal, and it has all the basic things which you need to learn about a language. Tutorials Point is a place to go. At least in my experience, it has helped me a lot. That is for learning the languages as well as some of the technologies. For example, operating system. Oh, by the way, one more thing to on the interview front, you should know some of the core computer science subject when you want to apply for computer science job. Those are operating systems, networking, database management systems, data structures. Let's say some universities have two versions of data structure, 1 and 2. Both the data structures, algorithms, very very important. And let's say if you're interested into machine learning jobs and stuff, maybe machine learning's data analytics, data warehousing, and all of these things. If you let's say if you are just looking for some core fundamental backend jobs or front-end jobs, then these are the ones. For the front-end people, one more subject which I would recommend is the HCI, human-computer interaction, or the JavaScript. If you have like a dedicated subject around it. That said, preparing for languages, I already said Tutorials Point is like the place to go. Learn the language, have the basics in your pocket, and once you have that, I believe the more coding you do, the better you get at it. So for that, you need to practice, and the practice comes from one of the websites which I immediately think about is HackerRank, because HackerRank has very nice problem statements where you can just implement the algorithm or the data structure which you have learned for and have a working code around it, and it runs it against like numerous test cases. And if let's say some of the test cases, edge cases, are failing, then you can improve your code. So what I have seen is like in the first go, nobody gets it right. Okay, in fact, I never got like my code running in like the first go for most of the times. Okay, so but after a point, you sort of learn, you get the experience that's how does some of the edge cases may look like. And then once you know that, then you can write your code in a better way to adjust those test cases preemptively in your code. So when you're interviewing, let's say, okay, this is a very good interviewing tip which I hoped I would have got when I was interviewing back in the days. Okay, you should be in a position to come up with some of the edge cases on your own, and if you are, make sure that you communicate that, hey, I'm writing this code and this is the one of the potential edge cases which I'm anticipating for this problem. If you yourself preemptively tell the interviewer would like it. That you think about it. He'll get an impression that, hey, this guy is looking at an end-to-end solution with all of the edge cases and trying to address them. Now, does it mean that let's say you miss one or two, will that be like a complete, bad or something? No. But it's always good to talk it out it should come from you. And once it comes from you, that's a great thing. Okay. So HackerRank. Okay. LeetCode is one of the very famous platforms. There you have the company-wise segregation of the codes. Like for example, lately Google is asking for these 40, 50, 100 questions, whatever. So you can go to LeetCode and prepare for them. Company-wise, let's say if you have an interview lined up, if you want to like prepare for the coding stuff, then LeetCode has that a blind 75 or something like that. So they have a list of problems, 75 different problems which are being bucketed according to different types of problems which are being asked in the interview. That is a great place to prepare for interview. By the way, NeetCode, there is this guy, a YouTuber called NeetCode, who is doing a fantastic job. He was not there when I was doing my engineering, but I totally wished he would. If he would have been there, he would have made my life so much easier. But thankfully for the folks who are right now preparing, they have that platform. So NeetCode came up with like a good list of 150 questions, which is also being segregated by problems, by the types of problems. And also he has created like this nice graph on his website as to what sequence you should learn these things in. So that's it. According to me, the 150 questions are a fantastic resource, and you should, not the whole 150 I would say, but you should know majority chunk of them. And if you know, then you should be good enough to appear for most of the interviews. Does it mean that, okay, 150 are done, then, now I'm like, able to crack any interview? Probably not, but practicing around those 150, trying and looking for variations of the same problems. As I said, looking for edge cases and stuff like that.
And I think a topic on edge cases, right? When I was doing this coding LeetCode पर, तो मेरे को लगा था कि यार edge case पे क्यों इतना time waste कर रहे हैं? Like it's just like a very sad thing कि edge case अगर पास नहीं हुआ तो हमको interview के लिए बुलाते नहीं थे. So I was very frustrated with that. But now that I've spent some time in the industry, I now understand कि edge case का important क्या है. The importance of edge case is it helps you develop that mindset. Saying अगर कोई problem आया, it's very easy to implement it the first go, but have you thought about different edge cases? And the reason is a very simple problem. Let's say you have a data point which you don't really have right now. You need to source it from some other system. Real world example, बैंक में या किधर भी आप काम कर रहे हो, यहाँ पे आपके पास you're creating a report में एक data point है नहीं, and then the solution is go to a data system and try sourcing the data point. Now it's very easy to think यार data source तो ऊपर ही है, फटाक से लेके आओ वो team से, but you have to think about edge cases कि what will happen to the current schema, right? What if the number is negative? What kind of what kind of data type that should that column have, right? How does that column impact my other downstream? So I think ये mindset जो आता है, it comes first from experience and also from thinking about edge cases क्या है. So any problem you get, it's very easy to come up with a simple solution, but it's very important to think about edge cases and come up with a robust solution. Even though it's not the first solution, it's okay, but coming up with robust is more important than coming up with any solution.
Exactly. I'll give you a very great example about the edge cases. Okay. So for example, null checks are good. Is a very preliminary and first edge case we should be doing for, especially in the lead code style of questions, that you have this method. It has like 3 parameters. The first edge case avoidance which you should do is check if any of the parameters which you are getting is null. Okay. Now it's a very simple thing and maybe it looks like a very trivial thing that hey, kya karna padta hai? Okay, but think about it from a bigger standpoint. Like for example, from my context, I'll tell you, I am working on, let's say, some of the very big components at LinkedIn. Okay, and let's say if there is a null pointer exception thrown somewhere, okay, it can result in breaking the whole LinkedIn as a system, I would tell you. Okay, so a little bit context on that. I was working on a component in the past which was responsible for all of the third-party interactions which are being done through LinkedIn with the third parties. What third party means? All of the external websites or companies from LinkedIn. So when you are talking about a social media platform, you usually interact with a lot of third-party systems. Like you send data, you get data. You might have seen a lot of sign in using LinkedIn. Like, hey, sign in with LinkedIn. I worked on a part of that actually. It's called an OAuth system. But for that, you have to send the user data from LinkedIn to third party. Okay. That's what the permission is for. When you click on that sign in with LinkedIn, it redirects you to a LinkedIn page, and there, hey, this website is trying to access your profile data. Do you approve this action? Approve. And then your data is sent there. So there was this team who are working with Azure. Okay, Azure as in the cloud provider, Microsoft. Okay, and they had some integration with Azure, and they were sending some data to Azure for their use case, whatever use case maybe, I don't know, but I was an on call at the time, and they came and they immediately started seeing a lot of failures, and I was being drawn at like late night, very late night actually, 3 a.m. in the morning, because it has revenue implications. Okay, so I was drawn to this group, and they had a revenue meter. That hey, right till now, in the last 2 hours, we have lost $5 million. Wow, $7 million in the next 15 minutes, $9 million in the next 15 minutes. Okay, so the revenue pointer was going up, and I was like totally stressed out. What's happening? I checked in. I saw that hey, what's up with this? So I saw that from the logs, it was clear that Azure system was failing. From on our end, we are sending the request rightly, but Azure system is failing, so we are never getting anything back from Azure. So I asked them that hey, this looks like to be the Azure failure. Maybe too much details for this context, but it's a very nice one. Okay, so I asked the engineers that hey, I think you should escalate it with Microsoft because there may be some failure on their side. They talked to them immediately, and they identified it was a null pointer exception. Wow, think about that. A small one-line code. They reverted the version, they addressed the issue, and they released a new version, and the issue was solved. But think about the revenue implications of that, and this happens all the time. That's what on-calls are for. That's what like all of the things which happens around. So it's a very trivial thing, a very maybe it that's what a bug is called. This is a bug, an example of bug which you need to resolve. So in our case, this was not on me, thankfully. I was totally concerned that okay, if this is coming from my system at 3 a.m. in the morning, I was in no shape to like even do anything about it. But and the revenue meter was going up, so it was such a mess. But thankfully, it got resolved. So yeah, null pointers can get you into a lot of trouble. And similarly, not just null pointer, but all of the edge cases if those are not addressed correctly.